4, the spirit of Colorado. This is News 4 at 10.
A young man, the victim of a vicious hate crime, tied to a fence, beaten, tortured, and left to die.
News 4, the spirit of Colorado. This is News 4 at 10.
My name is Robert Dewberry. I am the sergeant at the sheriff's office. You have the right to remain silent. Anything you say can and will be used against you in the court of law. Okay, so you guys, yourself and Russell Henderson, both went down to the fireside. You were by yourselves, is that right?
Yeah.
Okay, so where did you go after the fireside?
Some guy wanted to ride home.
And what did he look like?
Like a queer.
Over here on holiday and wanted to explore the area, so I thought, why not take a bike ride up to the top of Cactus Canyon? I didn't know my way at all, so I was just kind of choosing the way to go, and looking back on it now, I think God wanted me to find him, because there was no way I was going that way. I was knee deep in sand and I just kept pedaling. Something kept telling me to keep going, and there was this rock on the ground and I just went straight over the handlebars. As I picked myself up off the floor, I was just on my knees. I saw him in the distance. I thought it was a scarecrow. It was all raggedy and it had to be a scarecrow. It was close to Halloween. It must have been some kind of joke. I thought it was a dummy or something. As I got closer, I kept seeing his chest going up and down, but I convinced myself it was a dummy. Some kind of mechanism or something like that. But it was when I saw the hair, that's when I knew. And I just run as fast as I can to the nearest house. I just kept running.
When I got there, all I could see was partially somebody's feet. So I got out of my vehicle and I rushed over. I saw what appeared to be a young man, 13, 14 years old. He looked so tiny, laid on the ground, tied against a pole. I did the best I could. The gentleman that was on the floor, Matthew Shepard, he was covered in dry blood all over his head. And there was dry blood underneath him. And he was barely breathing. He did the best that he could. I was going to breathe for him, but I couldn't get his mouth open. His mouth just wouldn't open for me. He was covered in, like I said, dry blood all over his head. The only place he didn't have blood on him was on his face, where he appeared to have been crying.
I was working the emergency room the night that Matthew Shepard was brought into us. And we hadn't seen a patient in his condition for quite a long time. Some of us who have worked in a big city hospital before have seen this kind of thing, but there are some of us who've not worked in a big city hospital. And it's certainly something you don't expect to see here. Your first thought is, well, you'd certainly like to think that it's somebody from out of town who comes through and beats somebody. I mean, this thing happens. Shit happens. Things happen here in Laramie. But when it's somebody who's beaten repeatedly, it's certainly something that offends us. I think that's a good word. It offends us.
How many times did you hit him?
2, 3 times. 3 times with my fist. 6 times with my pistol.
Did Matthew Shepard ask you to stop?
I was beating the shit out of him, of course he did.
And what did he say?
Just begged. And started screaming.
His head was distorted. You know, it didn't look normal. He had a really harsh head wound. His thumbs were out in what's called a cuffing position, the way we handcuff people. His shoes were missing. He was tied extremely tight, so I got out my boot knife and I slipped it in between his wrist and the rope. I had to be extremely careful not to harm Matthew any further.
So Russell was the one who dragged him over to the fence and tied him up, I'm assuming.
Yeah. He laughed at first, but then he got scared.
And was Matthew conscious when Russell tied him up?
Yeah. I was scared he'd read my license plate number and tell the police, so I turned him around. Then I turned him around again and said, read it. And he did. So I beat him again.
So let me get this straight. You don't like gay people.
No, I don't.
You say that you hated them?
I don't hate them. Just when they try to come on here, I get a bit aggravated. Am I gonna see my son again?
I don't know. You'll probably go to court sometime today.
So I plead in front of a jury today?
No, you're just going to be arraigned today.
My son Matthew did not look like a winner. He was rather uncoordinated and wore braces from the age of 13 until the day he died. However, in his all too brief life, he proved that he was a winner.
What they did. Maybe his friends, their most important mission is to remind the world to be angry at that. We must not ever heal from that.